Okay. Yeah. So even though I've been working on it for a while, I haven't actually enabled it in any of the builds that have come out. But I wanted to um, talk about what I've been working on for the enemy behavior. So I mean you probably noticed that as it's been so far, the enemy behavior has pretty much just been enemies just beeline straight towards you. And so what I've been working on basically is giving enemies different behaviors and decisions they can make. And so in the next version that goes up, I'll probably release it tomorrow. You'll notice that the behavior is very different now, where um, they can basically do different things. They can flank you. They can run away from you if their health gets low. If and they get scared. They can kite you. They can do an aggressive beeline for you. They can fake you out. They can randomly reposition. And so now, like when you play the game, it really you'll notice that the behavior really kind of distributes the movement across the screen, where you know you you'll find yourself kind of moving in a lot of different places now, as opposed to things just randomly following you. So I'm still tweaking it, still uh, making decisions about how I want that behavior to go. But a lot of it's in there where at least we kind of have more varied behavior. So I'm pretty happy with that. It is interesting, how much it changes the game, and how how little it takes really. Because really, in all 16-bit games, enemy behavior like enemy behavior scripting is it's always been dead simple. Really in the Capcom games, the way that it worked pretty much was they pretty much just have sort of like pre-recorded scripts that they go through, some pre-recorded movements, and but this is actually a lot less predictable because there's a lot of real randomization in the behavior in this one, and so they can actually fake you out quite a bit, which is pretty interesting. And so yeah, I like the kite behavior. I like the flanking behavior. Where some enemies will actually kind of like lead you around and back off when you follow them, just kind of to kite you around, and they really can sneak up behind you. So it's it's an improvement. Like I said, I'm still working on it. Um, I'm still tweaking it a little bit, but the behavior is definitely a lot more complicated than the original games, and that's just all kind of part of what I wanted to do with this. Basically, the goal is that you know this version should be a straight upgrade over the original game in every way. Like without exception. There's no point in there's no point in doing it unless that's going to be the case. You can see how Hollywood just kind of flanked me there. Got got it behind me. So yeah, it's I'm pretty happy with that, and so it should be a lot more fun to play. The behavior should be pretty interesting. The enemies running away from you sometimes, and also like the scavenge behavior is still in there. So there are actually already a lot of different decisions the enemies can make. It's basically they can they can charge you, they can run away from you. There's a chance for them to run away from you when their health is below 20%. They can flank you, they can kite you. They can randomly reposition, and so basically from here on, the other things that I'm going to be adding in are essentially variations on each one of these behaviors for each character. So basically, like Eddie will if he's a certain distance from you, and your Z position is within a certain threshold, he might shoot you with his gun. Try to shoot you with his gun, things like that. and then that'll add in kind of, like the character specific flavor. But yeah, it's way better than just, enemies all just kind of clumping up and just immediately, beelining for you. Um, it's a lot better. And so something else that I wanted to mention is, so something that I always wanted to do, like one of the things that I always thought it was really interesting is, you know, uh, 16:9 CRTs, and kind of, 240p sort of, widescreen games, because how like some, old Saturn games actually had widescreen modes, like Panzer Dragoon and, Saturn Bomberman, things like that. And because it's so trivial to do with this version of Final Fight, I really wanted to support that scenario. So I did add support for widescreen, CRTs if you have a Groovy MAME setup. And you can see that, Robbie, JVC here, he actually made, some neat videos of different games running at 16:9 on, a 16:9 CRT in native resolution. So this is actually, like, the native resolution of it is 512 by 224. And yeah, so he just made some videos of, just, showing the game. So I thought that was pretty neat. Yeah, like I said, I don't have a setup like this myself, so I couldn't test it. So I pretty much, had to rely on him to, to test this, to, see whether it works. But I mean, it's pretty straightforward though. I mean, pretty much, like I said, I mean, it works just like Groovy MAME, more or less. You find the closest matching resolution, and, it uses super resolutions. So, you can just, set it to, 2560 by 224, and you'll basically get a native, widescreen Final Fight on a CRT. So that's pretty neat. And also he uploaded some other neat videos of, like, Street Fighter 3, Second Impact, and Panzer Dragoon for the Saturn. So you could see those. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, and yeah, he did Panzer Dragoon there. But yeah, that was just one of those things where it's just like, it's one of those things where, you might have seen it in some, like, video game magazine in the 90s, when there was that period of time where, like, in Japan they had those early HD TVs, and some of the, 16-bit 32-bit games actually had widescreen modes. And it's neat though, actually, seeing that moving, because like I said, I'm never gonna, end up with one of those. I'm probably never gonna have a widescreen CRT, but so it's just kind of neat, to actually see it, running. And but yeah, so he made some videos there, so that's pretty neat. I'm probably gonna do, another video that's just kind of more like general update stuff. I wanted to do a video about Metroid Dread, and also a Sony bashing video, some other things. But basically, I really am trying to, nip this thing in the bud. I really want to get something that I could say, okay, this is pretty much feature complete for Final Fight out, this year, and I'm, rapidly running out of time. Because really, it's like I gotta get this together so I can, move on and make something else, because I'm kind of getting antsy to make a different game. It's kind of getting to the point where, I mean, after a while of working on the same thing, it just gets boring. But I know that, you can't just start, tons of, new projects all the time, or you'll never finish anything. But that's pretty good progress on Final Fight. It's a huge leap from where it was in enemy behavior. So I think I am kind of, you're reaching the finish line there. It's getting pretty close. And also, I didn't mention, kind of the other thing that went along with this is, now that the enemies, don't just kind of, like, move towards you, because of the way the camera works in the game, it becomes way more important to not just have like endless waves of enemies, and you basically just kind of moving the enemies along to get to the end of the stage. And so that's the other change that's kind of going along with the change to the enemy behavior, is that all of the spawn points are actually way different, where you basically want to make sure that you only have so many enemies that you have to burn through before you can keep scrolling through the stage. And so that's the other thing that's kind of going along with this, is that I'm trying. I mean, basically it kind of changes the pace of the game, where it's more of like it's kind of in a way it's closer to the original, even though enemies can't be knocked off of the stage or like knocked off of the camera. It's closer to the flow of the original game in a way, because it's more like you get some waves of enemies, you beat them up, and then you move forward, repeat. It's closer to that flow. Whereas before, the flow was just more kind of like, let's just try to keep moving right, essentially, because the enemies are never going to stop spawning. And so it does actually have a pretty big impact on just like the flow of it, as opposed to just like constantly kind of kiting the enemies along to the end of the stage. It's more like I'm clearing out the waves. It's more kind of start and stop. It's more kind of like if enemies are backing off of you, tracking them down and beating them up, as opposed to them just always blindly coming towards you, so you really don't have to move. And that was kind of like the problem with the placeholder AI that I had in there before, where I mean to a certain extent, you almost didn't have to move. You could basically just let the enemies come to you, especially in endless mode. Which really didn't give you a lot of variety, because you really do want to keep the character moving in different parts of the camera, to kind of just add some variety to to what you're doing there. So yeah, so I'll probably do like some Halloween photos, so people can fiddle around with that if they want to. But yeah, it's getting pretty close. And yeah, and also I've been doing some like heavy modifications to Eddie, because Eddie was basically completely broken in the previous versions. And so I kind of found a way, even though the animation frames really aren't there for the character, I kind of found a way to at least make it semi playable.